Hello and welcome to Sutro Sidetalk, episode 184. I'm your host, Kamran Shushtar, and with me is...
James Seelig.
And we have not one, but two special guests with us. One is a returning Side Talk person. Momo is back once again. You've seen her in multiple anime episodes. It's been a good time. Momo, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
And coming in for the first time to Side Talk, but she was on Side Watch 3 times for 3 different Ghibli-themed episodes, is Allessandra. Hello.
Hello, I'm Alessandra.
And how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well.
Slash afternoon.
Yes, I'm actually quite chipper.
Awesome. And right now it's hella rainy for, I think, everyone, ironically enough, East and West Coast, because both of you are in Atlanta. We're over here in San Francisco, and we're talking anime today. Sutro Side Talk, we always talk what we watch and play. This week we've got Mob Psycho 100's third and final season, as well as Spy Family Part 2, which is just a bundle of a good time. And before we start, let us all just mourn our loss of an hour. We lost an hour for daylight savings time. It sucks.
I was literally joking before we started this. I was just like, when I woke up, I was like, why am I so tired? I got 8 hours. No, I didn't.
Yeah, I may have been awake at like 2, and it was like 1 something, and I was playing something, and I look, and I'm like, yeah, it's 1 something, and then I look over, and it's like, it's 3:06, and I'm like looking at it again, and I'm like really thinking, and I'm looking at the game, and I'm like, was I really in the load screen for an... No, I'm not even high. What's happening right now? It took me
I messed up.
It took me like 15 minutes to look up daily. I'm like, oh, it's today. Okay, that's why everything's horrible. Great.
I knew it was coming too, and I still forgot.
I just completely forgot. It just didn't even dawn on me. I could have sworn we voted to get rid of this, but I guess not.
Yeah, our government can never agree on anything. So
yeah. I'm pretty sure
they still don't.
Yeah, the state was supposed to get rid of it, and unfortunately, we're still here. Otherwise, the Destiny raid came out. I haven't tried it yet, but it's exactly who I expected it to be as the boss. James, can you guess who it is?
I'm guessing Nezarek.
Yeah, it's Nezarek.
Yeah,
Lord of Nightmares.
Yeah, I did the strike last night, and I was like, oh, is this Nezarek? Yeah, it is Nezarek. Finally, we get to hear this guy say something or do anything.
Alessandra, what happens is like a raid will come out in the game Destiny, and everyone will race to be like the world's first person to do it, and they'll throw in like, oh, here's all the challenges you just get like weekly. You have to do all of them potentially, and it's on like a very difficult mode, and you don't have any idea how the raid works. So you're just watching all these people's streams of just like trying to get it done, and the average time is 5 to 8 hours of people just trying to do it, and one team did it in 2 for the first. It was like the fastest time.
Wow.
Yeah. And
back in the day for like Kingsfall and stuff, that was like a dozen hours at least, just like banging your head against the wall until you figure it out.
Yeah, you see the person that did it, they're just like full raccoon eyes, like, I've done it, I've won. Yeah, so that was a good thing. And then Attack on Titan, the special came out. We're not going to talk about it right now. I actually don't feel like we're talking about it until the rest of it comes out, because I got tricked. I'm like, oh, okay, it's the starting special, it's a premiere like Demon Slayer, it's an extra long episode.
Bamboozled.
And I'm like, cool, when does episode 2 come out? Oh yeah, that's part 2. I'm like, wait, that was like part 1 of the final season, part 3? What? And they're like, yeah, and the next episode comes out in the fall. What? Look, you just gave us an
Why are they doing this to us?
Wait until October? Yeah, it's straight up. I'm assuming, I'm putting my bet in right now. I was joking, like, it's going to be a movie probably, but if it's a third part of a final season, it'll probably be like a full season or something, like 6 episodes for both parts. And this one is just an hour, which means I think the last part's going to be 1.5 to 2 hours, and they're going to put it in the theater because they're like, we could make big money off of this.
It literally does feel like what they did for the last Harry Potter movie, where they just were like, can we possibly split this into 2 movies and just draw it out?
Capitalism.
Yeah, that was like the beginning of didn't Twilight do that also, and a bunch of other stuff?
Yeah, Twilight did that too.
Yeah, I feel Hunger Games kind of started that trend, didn't it?
Oh yeah, that one.
You're right.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I did watch that one.
I forgot about that.
That was actually crazy. That when you look at the cast in there, you got Foggy from Daredevil. You got
Really? Wait, huh?
yeah, he's one of the camera guys. You have Mahershala Ali as one of like the militia dudes. You've got
Huh. Dude, I don't
you got a
remember
lot of
any of
people in there.
this.
Those are just
I just
dudes.
remember Jennifer Lawrence.
Natalie Dorner.
You don't remember good old Josh Hutcherson?
Yeah.
Pita bread?
Oh, yeah,
that's
PETA.
who he was. I was like, Josh. When you said
Pita
Josh, I'm
bread.
like, Drake and Josh were in it? What? When? I don't remember this.
No.
Bread, love it.
I can't remember his last name.
I totally forgot that his name was PETA and then he made bread. That's
He
bread.
makes bread. That's there
Yeah,
you
he's
go.
a baker. Yeah.
I never put that together.
Okay, I'm gonna go find the author's house and throw an egg at it for that one. Damn it. All right.
Talk to Suzanne Collins, I think.
Okay. I'm gonna honestly probably forget that by the end of this episode. Be
That's
like, who
okay.
was it?
Her books are good.
Sure. It wasn't the yeah. Anyway. All right. So let's jump into Mob Psycho 100. And we have a full, I guess, agenda set of topics how we wanted to go about this. And some of them might overlap depending because characters, story, and all that usually tend to. But the first thing I had as a topic was, how does this final season, compare to the first two? Each one has a specific theme or goal that ends up happening with a bunch of one-shot episodes within it. The first being like, oh, we're just learning about the secret organization that's kidnapping the young telepaths or empaths, and they have to take care of that. And then it gets into more of the upper echelon of that organization in the second season, where they have to then fight to save themselves and stop the big bad. And then this new season is pretty much not any of that, and it's really just Mob kind of
It felt really different.
Yeah, but I guess who would like to go first with this question? Or we'll just pick someone random.
I could start, I guess.
Okay.
I think overall, I think I enjoyed this season. I want to say the most, just because of like, I really liked how it ended, and it felt like it kind of brought everything together that like had happened throughout the whole series, like bringing back like pretty much, maybe not all, but like most of the characters that Mob has interacted with like over time, and just like fixed traumas that he's had since like literally childhood. But I wasn't a huge fan of the structure of it as much. Like you mentioned that this season had a lot more like one-shot episodes where each episode felt like it was its own self-contained story. And some of those played out well for me and others didn't. Whereas I really liked the first two seasons where you're seeing just like kind of a progressing single storyline that you mentioned, of just like the Esper organization, just topped by the like dude who's essentially almost as powerful as Mob, but apparently not really. And like, so I really liked seeing it build to that like massive fight at the end of the second season. And then this season, just nothing quite felt as insanely over the top as the end of the second season, until Mob goes psycho at the end of this season, which we'll get to it when we get to that story arc. But I really liked that last episode or two. I think it was
it was 3 or 4 episodes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because
yeah,
there were it was a 3-parter
like,
and then an epilogue, more or less.
I think I just like rushed through it because I was just like, oh my God, I need to see like how this ends. Because I just seeing everyone that Mob had like helped or touched over the years, or I guess year or so, like come back and try to help him any way they can. Even the people without powers, like the self-improvement club, like trying their hardest. And like, I was like basically crying when Reagan was like, hey, I didn't want to lose to you, so I started working out, and like it's gonna help. And he just like runs as best as he can to try to just put his hand on Mob's shoulder to try to help him. Like I was like dying. But so I don't know. Trying to simplify that answer. I liked the feeling of this season a lot in terms of like how it made me feel. I just didn't like the structure of like the individual episode arcs.
Okay.
I guess as much.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, James. I thought it was very interesting that really exploring the dynamic of, okay, if Mob were to really embrace being able to be OP and want to in a leadership position, what would that look like? What would that mentality be? And I do appreciate how they explored that, of him becoming more like overconfident, I guess you could say, and just kind of seeing where that shift of consciousness would become. But at the same time, I agree with what James said. I think the structure, how to go about it, was very, I don't want to say clunky. I think that's too overhanded of a word, but yeah, I think it's just interesting take of how they go about showing that story structure as a whole. So
Okay. How about you, Alessandra?
Yeah, kind of just tagging off of what James and Momo said. The structure of it was kind of odd, like until you sent us kind of the agenda of season 3 and trying to collect my thoughts about it. I totally forgot about the alien arc.
Yeah.
Totally forgot
Yeah.
about that.
I saw that line and I was like, aliens.
I was like,
oh
aliens.
yeah.
yeah, same. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had
forgot
to
about the
yeah.
arc where Mob was like 100% full of himself or whatever.
Yeah.
I just thought that was so bizarre.
Yeah. And now that I think about it, the final arc of where Mob tries to like go for the love of his life, essentially. I mean, he's only in middle school, but but he finally tries to go for it. Really tugs at your heartstrings because of that devastating event that happens.
Yeah.
And then you see everyone come together and help him and everything. That ties it all together really nicely. But executing that to lead up to that point was kind of wonky.
Definitely. For me, I think I would agree where it didn't feel like a final season when I'm watching it for the most part. And I'm like, this is really the final season. And I'm trying to figure out, because I feel like, each season had like a 12 episode count for the most part, I think. And just seeing how fast it was going through and the countdown. And I'm like, what's going to happen? Because I'm trying to figure out, like, how is this going to change or something? And the only thing I'm gauging is the intro, thinking like, oh, maybe this is telling me that Mob's going to be the bad guy. And I was like, right. And I was like, oh, shit, I just didn't think this is how it was going to happen. But okay. I think that I liked, in terms of a season itself, I think season 2 was probably still my favorite. I think in terms of ranking them, I think it's 2, 1, then 3, just as a season, but 3 still had the best, I guess, payoff, just for those last 4 episodes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And then the characters that it focused on this time, like the first one, it was really heavily focused on Ritsu, kind of figuring himself out, being jealous of Mob. And their relationship, plus like showing a little bit of Hanazawa just after he gets humbled for the first time. And then like season 2, you're kind of learning about the whole organization. They're all showing up more, and you're getting a little bit more of like, I forget what her name is, but the girl with the camera who always does photography. You have the club that isn't really a club, and they're just like, yeah, we just like playing games, but also we like ghosts and stuff, whatever. So you're getting a little bit more of them, whereas this one is kind of like the end game for everything, and it's focusing on his relationships with both Reagan and Tsubomi, who, he's just like, I really want to ask this girl out finally. And I think it was very interesting that those are kind of his 2 endgame characters that he has to deal with, not like a final boss or anything like that. Well, I guess the final boss being himself, but that Reagan and him, like, you even get it in the intro a little bit without going too much into it. Like at the very end of the intro, you see Reagan and Mob together, and you see as Mob grows up next to Reagan, that feeling of like, okay, this is going to come to a head at the end where it's about those two. Like you can already kind of, it's very, very hard foreshadowing. But how'd you feel about, I guess, like those two being the final relationship for him to kind of deal with? Was just everything he learned from Reagan and what Reagan learned from him, plus dealing with Tsubomi at the end there as well.
So I think I was much more interested in the Reagan storyline because I kind of gotten the impression after season 2 that Mob kind of just acknowledged that he is aware that Reagan is like a fraud, but he just doesn't want to call him out on it or whatever. So I thought it was interesting that the thing that snaps Mob out of his like break at the end of the season is Reagan actually finally coming 100% clean with him and saying like, I've been using you this whole time and I know I shouldn't, and like you're way more powerful than me, so you should not call me master, but like, you know, I care about you and I just want you to know like everyone's got a hidden side to them, so don't be afraid of yours, just accept it. And I liked that, and I liked that you see Reagan kind of like progress as a person throughout like the whole series and get like a little bit less. I mean, he's still scamming people and stuff, but like he's at least not a completely morally bankrupt person by the end. And for Tsubomi, I don't know. I wish there was more character there because we didn't really get much of her other than for some reason she is like the most popular girl in school, and like literally when everyone found out she was moving, there was a line around the block of people trying to have their last shot at her, and she's just like, no, sorry, I don't even know who you are. So but like, and it was interesting that we get to see a little bit of like, you know, why Mob specifically likes her is that like she was one of the few people that didn't like freak out when he showed her his like powers. And I forget who it was that was saying that like they know Tsubomi, like she's actually just like really apathetic and like she'll never really care about you. Like I don't remember who said that to him, but like
I think it was photographer girl.
Yeah.
that sounds about right. Yeah, and so like I did think it was interesting that she was like the last major hurdle that Mob had to get over, and I did appreciate when Mob like finally comes to and he like goes and shoots his shot and he gets shot down, and he's just like, yeah, she said no, it's okay, and then he just starts crying like a normal kid would when he get
Yeah.
like when like the person he has a crush on says no,
But
like
they continue a friendship.
yeah, and it's really cute, and so like it's cool that like yeah, they keep going as friends, and I maybe would have liked to see some of like their relationship after that, but at least as far as the season, like she kind of just didn't have as much character to her as I would have liked.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't really see a whole lot of Tsubomi in season 1 or season 2. You just know that she's a girl that Mob has a crush on, and there wasn't really a whole lot to that. But I liked the payoff with Reagan at the end because Reagan kind of gives him that pep talk, like, hey, before you go in there, just want to say this real quick. And, you know, I liked that.
Definitely.
Definitely. Yeah, 100% agree. I also appreciate the exploration of other characters like Serizawa and then Hanazawa, just having those, like more so Serizawa and Reagan kind of like becoming their own thing as Mob does his own, it's kind of, it's interesting like seeing that branch off, right? Like
Yeah.
those different dynamics and just the growth with Serizawa going to like night school or like taking classes and whatnot. And so him and Ray kind of become their own thing, and the Mob, keeps growing as a person. So I always appreciate those kind of other side of those relationships where, again, not everything's just surrounded by Mob. Other people are going to grow in their own way. And then I just really appreciated Mob and Hanazawa's relationship of like shopping with the t-shirt and like things of that nature, where you really just see a deeper relationship with their relationship, like their friendship as a whole over the seasons of how it transitioned. And I just really appreciate kind of do like a slightly more deep dive instead of be like, oh yeah, that's my fellow like ESP or like whatever. So I do appreciate that, just going a bit deeper and just having, again, just that payoff of the end climax just be that much more important.
Yeah. And I do think I agree, especially with having like Serizawa and Reagan together. You get to see a lot of just, oh, I have a new assistant who's also a grown person, and it's good because he was like one of the upper, was it the final four or something that what's
Yeah.
his face had, and seeing Mob, because Mob eventually talks to Reagan because he's being told by his counselor, like, hey, this is Japan, so you have time to go through your teens and figure yourself out, but do it fast because if you don't do it, life's gonna get really hard for you. And you're like, what the heck? Jesus Christ, okay. And he goes to Reagan at a certain point, and it's just like, I don't think this is gonna be me long term here. I think I'm, probably gonna do something else. And Reagan's like, I understand you have to grow. And I was only joking about like you staying here forever or something like that. Like, I want you to go be your own man and do your own thing. So it was good seeing like they both get that growth of I'm going to be leaving the nest at a certain point, but also Reagan, he has a life as well, like you said, and like it's good to see that it expands and you see more of it outside of just Mob. Going into the other character, and Tsubomi, yeah, she's very much just kind of like, you don't really, all you knew was she's like, oh, those are cool powers. All right, I'm bored. And then I'm done with this already. And I did like that they do talk at the end, and it leaves it open for the audience to kind of determine from there, like, are they just going to be friends, or maybe long term something else happens, but that's not really what it's about. But you're just kind of enjoying seeing Mob be more confident and growing, that he could just casually talk to her now on the phone. Okay, like not even occasionally, but more often than it was before. But the other characters that I felt like, it wasn't just like their relationship with Mob, really. It was just seeing them flourish as characters were Hanazawa, Suzuki, and Ritsu. And Hanazawa, I think, being the biggest one, like you already said, Momo, like you get to really see him become friends with Mob. And after he humbles him, you see Hanazawa show up again, just like, hey, dude, these dudes are trying to kidnap everybody. So, I'll help you out. And he sticks with him like the whole time, going through everything in each season, fighting till the very until he gets his ass completely kicked by someone. And in this final season, he not only gets his ass kicked once, but twice. And, I think people would agree with me that he was the hero of season 3. He's the one that kept going in first. And he literally put everything on the line, especially at the end. And not only that, but acted like a hero and saved everyone around him, which I thought was amazing. And, at the sacrifice of his own hair and everything once again. But like the line he says at the very end, just like, I'm sure something is going horribly wrong, but never forget, I'm your rival. And because he had I guess you'd say a Rengoku moment, because Rengoku loses the fight, but he wins the fight because no one died. He saved everybody there. And the same thing happens here, where Hanazawa gets
that was great,
completely destroyed, but no one
for a second
dies.
You're like, holy shit, did Mob just kill like a bunch of families?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, thankfully they're all safe.
Yeah, and he's able to make, even like basically about to fall over and like go unconscious, like he's just enough power that he had that many orbs around that many people simultaneously. But I think he has the biggest growth.
Didn't he also like sacrifice himself in the broccoli fight to basically like,
about to say, yeah, he did,
to trigger Mob into going like full psycho to like win the fight?
Yeah.
No, exactly. And I think it's interesting you brought that up 100%. I was just thinking that too. And I think it's interesting where I think Hanazawa has such a crazy character arc like within the 3 seasons. And honestly, by the end of it, I think he's much more of a hero, or he's
Definitely.
Because he's more socially aware than Mob. Because if you think about it, Mob only acted because it directly affected him, because he kept ignoring like, whatever, doesn't affect me, da 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 da. It wasn't until literally he's one of the last people who wasn't affected by Dimple / the broccoli thing to say, oh, I probably should take action, or like, oh, maybe I should be a leader and step up. So I think it's really interesting where I know Mob is again not socially aware and he's still innocent and growing, but at the same time though, it's just interesting where everyone kept acting, the first people to act around him, and he was always the last one to actually do something about it. And I get it. Yeah, you don't want to take on your powers, you want to use your powers, but at the same time, he's so apathetic and just not interested in, like, the only thing he was more interested in was, Kurotawa, when she was like, oh, I kind of just want to give up sci-fi stuff. And again, it wasn't even Mob that really instilled in it. It was like her other friends, and for like not wanted, disbanding the club, but really want to do something for her. And Mob's like, okay, let me join in. So I think it's just so interesting where yes, Mob is innocent. Yes, he's still like a naive way about him. But at the same time, I feel like he's still really apathetic. Just the fact that he's always the last one to really take action. And it's only because he's kind of like the one punch man, like Satsuma, like just in it. He just happened to be, upon the situation. So he's more reactive than actively thinking, like unlike Hanazawa, who's like, let me do this. Let me be the first person to help people.
Yeah, I thought one of the most interesting parts of the season was when Hanazawa ate like one of the candies or something like that, and just like for a second was like, yeah, you know what, that like psycho helmet religion, pretty great, and then just immediately is like, oh, I detected I've been brainwashed, and like immediately need to like throw up everything I just ate and like clear my mind and just like figure out like, okay, that happened for a reason. I gotta go figure out why and like where this is coming from and stuff like that. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, you can't trust edamame after that, man. You just
Yeah.
never know what's in it. Alessandra, do you have any feeling on Hanazawa?
Yeah, he's a great character. I mean, I liked he's just he was just like this over the top sort of goofy character that what started off to be Mob's rival, and he had the great character development, and I feel like he was the most behind Reagan, kind of he was the person with the most character development, because like Momo said, now he's more of the hero. He's first to take charge in situations where people will be in trouble, and yeah, he's more of a hero now than a villain. And I remember in season 1 thinking of him more as like a slimy, popular sort
No,
of
very much so.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
yeah,
He's
he's
literally
more of a
just like,
slimy person.
he's literally just like, I have psychic powers and I'm really good at using them, so I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
use them to get ahead in life. And then Mob just like
Mhm.
utterly humiliates him, and he's just like, oh, I'm shit.
Yeah.
I need to like tone it down a little bit.
Mhm. But
Uh
it's hard for me because knowing that, because he's even though he's like, oh, Mom, just so you know, I will always be your rival, that kind of thing, the whole like t-shirt thing. While I
yeah.
do feel like that was an attempt to, befriend Mob and everything, I just can't help but, feel in my gut like, oh no, he purposefully chose really bad looking clothes just for Mob to humiliate himself.
Oh, the monkey t. I love the
That
Yeah.
was so
they show
funny.
the monkey
It was
t-shirt
funny.
because it does it's like the full monkey sounds like
That
and
was
you're
like one
just
of my
like,
favorite
what
moments in the
just
season.
happened?
Like
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
Dimple is about to like
Yeah.
God punch him, and then he sees the shirt and he's just like, oh my God, that's an ugly shirt.
Yeah, why'd you wear this? And Ritsu's just like, I can't tell my brother.
Yeah, just Dimple's like, oh my God, he legitimately likes that shirt. He didn't do that because he thinks it's funny. He actually likes this shirt.
Oh,
Unironically.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a good,
Yeah.
it's-
One of my other than Hanazawa, one of my favorite moments from the season though was a Ritsu moment. And it was when, again, the last arc, when everyone's trying to do their best to help Mob, and they start doing the like, percentage climbing thing, and I was like, oh my God, is Mob gonna finally like wake up and fight his own other half like inside his own body to save his brother? And like, no, that's Ritsu going 100% to try to save his brother. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting that like for the first time someone else goes 100% to help
Yep.
Mob. I thought that was really cool. He still loses, but
yeah, Ritsu.
Yeah.
I thought it was
A
a
for
cool moment.
effort. A
Yeah.
for effort.
Mhm. But I mean, because he's his brother.
Yeah. And also, yeah, what sends him running after him is like he sees the destruction. He's like, oh no, is this because he got rejected? And he's just like, my brother's hurt. I need to go help him.
Yeah.
And then he sees the blood and everything else. I think because Ritsu's the other one of the other characters that have a lot of development, like just like Hanazawa in the first season. Instead of being like, I guess, humbled and just an asshole, he's just more so like he's very distant from his brother at that point, and he is envious of him. He's like, why do you have all this power? Why is it like you don't do anything with it? You don't do anything at all. And when he finally develops it on his own, he's like, I'm gonna fight you, Mob. And it doesn't end well because the organization shows up and like kidnaps him. But you see throughout like him growing in each season just being more of a supporting ally to Mob at a certain point and just happy and good with his brother, where yeah, by season 3 he's completely looking out for him even though he's his younger brother. He's worried about, like, he knows Tsubomi might not like him and he's just like, oh crap, like I want Mob to be happy, but
Like
I
he
also don't
literally
want him
knows
to.
that she's got like someone else she's interested in. He's just like, he knows the Mob's gonna get turned down. He's just like, I hope he takes it well.
Yeah. And by the end of it, even though he goes full 100%, it's not enough in the end. Like it's interesting to see that POV where he gets the final hit from
Yeah.
Mob and you see him kind of flying through the air from his own view, and you're just like, oh, it was not enough.
I thought he was gonna
but it
die.
was really good. Yeah. Because they treat you like you definitely think Hanazawa is going to be the one to die, and then you think Ritsu's going to die after that, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, and then you're like, oh shit, now Reagan's going to die because he's just normal, and that intro just tells you he's
Yeah.
going to die.
Just like Mob inside his own head, like begging everyone to like get away from him because he knows that like if they get too close, they could die. Is like heartbreaking.
And the last one, really, Suzuki, the villain from season 2, shows up, and it's much smaller, but like
That was interesting. That wait, the big bad guy?
yes,
Yeah, I
right
forgot his name. That was interesting that he comes back as kind of almost a good guy, sort of.
Yeah.
I like that he got a little bit of like reconciliation with his son, though. He's just like,
r-
yeah, you know what, you're right. We will not win this fight. Let's leave.
he puts up a good. It's very. I think that one is also a humbling fight because you get to kind of see him throw his all at it.
Yeah.
And
And
even
he realizes that, oh yeah, no, I'm not the strongest anymore.
yeah, he's not even close. He's just like, let's leave. Like he's just done. But I guess one thing I forgot a little bit, but I figured we'd talk about in the arc structure. But going into the arc structure, like I said, it was broken up into kind of 3 parts. The first part being Broccoli, which had a couple one-shots in it in the beginning, and you're watching kind of like the Broccoli at the end of each episode grow, and you're feeling like, oh, something's gonna happen
I
here.
love they just call it the divine tree.
Yeah.
It's like,
All
that's
the
a
merch.
broccoli.
And then
all
a
the
couple
merch, yeah.
episodes of Aliens,
Yeah.
and then we have pretty much the final portion. But Broccoli, it's got like, those couple one shots where there's the dude with the sword that tries to hunt like possessions and stuff, and he's like, I could do this, and he's like, oh, I also suck, like I can't do anything with the sword. Even with the sword, like everyone else is doing so much more work than me. Even practically Reagan
do
felt
not
more
remember
useful
this.
than him. Yeah, it was just a random one shot. There was just they do like 2 episodes of like the normal stuff you'd get in season 1, and you're just kind of like, oh cool, we just get a little bit more of that before they completely shift it to these other arcs, like first being Dimple becoming God Dimple, and he turns gold and is just like, yeah, I could totally flex now, guys, like everyone believes in me, I've drugged everybody with water and edamame and whatnot. And the rest get turned just because the sheer population is already like turned. So it's like a weird, like near, I guess, proximity brainwashing at a certain point.
I love how he's
I
trying
think
to
it's brainwashing, 'cause
justify
that's how
like,
Reagan got
it's
brainwashed,
fine.
right? It was the proximity that got Reagan.
Yeah, it was like he didn't.
Mhm.
He was just so impressed by. I think it happened like in the crowd, like the room full of people that were all
Yeah.
turned.
Yeah,
Something like that.
but
Yeah, he's just like, I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I just want people to like me. So what's the harm in that?
Dimple goes through all 3 seasons like that little shoulder devil from he's literally Mob's shoulder devil.
He's
just
literally
like,
just constantly saying like, you could do more, dude. Like, why are you just being a kid?
yeah. And we finally see it come to a head where it's like, if you don't want to take this credit, if you don't want to do this,
Mhm.
I'll take it, but I'm giving you like one last chance. You see him
Yeah.
trying. He's like, we could rule this together, you and I, Spider-Man. And he's just like, no, it's okay. And he goes through that full on try to take over the world, and he eventually gets, not humbled, but he realizes his relationship with Mob and how important it is to him.
I love that
And-
Mob literally just like jettisons all his psychic energy just to be like, okay, yeah, we can't have an honest conversation while I have power over you. So
Mhm.
no power. Let's just talk as friends. I thought that was really cute.
Very much so.
Also really creepy when they're like leaving the broccoli, and Dimple's just like, yeah, you know, the amount of power I got stored up, it'll probably fizzle out over the course of like a week or whatever. I'll just carry you home. And then there's just like one of the broccoli Shigeos off to the side. He's like, I'm not doing that. What? Why is it there?
If you're here and I'm here and you're over there, then that means, oh boy, yeah, it's like one of those
Yeah.
situations. I think what was crazy about that too was just like, hey, dude, you left the broccoli in the fridge too long. It's become sentient. It's like on its own. Like, this is why you eat your vegetables and don't just leave them.
Yeah,
But
I think it's so interesting that like that boss fight was between Dimple and the broccoli. It wasn't Mob. So I find that so interesting of what you expect again in the overarch like story structure is not what you'll essentially get at the end. So
Yeah.
that was very interesting kind of twist there.
Yeah. And I think they really only added the broccoli thing in there just to kind of give Dimple like a proper ending.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because if I remember correctly, Dimple never shows up in the last 4 episodes, right?
He does at the very end to
Oh,
help
that's right.
Reagan
That's right.
get close to Mob.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is like you're supposed to think he's dead, and then he's like, yeah, I got like pulled back through this like crazy power cyclone you made.
Yeah, that's right.
They really do a good trick on you because Mob's like, oh, like he cries at the end when he wakes up and thinks about it, and he's like, I feel like something's wrong, but
Yeah,
he can't remember.
Yeah,
like,
but at the same time, again, apathy. We're like, he's like, oh, I haven't seen Dimple in a few days, and like, okay, like, and so
and it's like, you know, it's been a month since you've seen Dimple.
Yeah.
You still thinking about that? It's like, no, I'm sure he's fine. Like,
okay.
yeah, like I did really like how they pulled off that scene where Dimple is like giving his last, I guess, demand or request or command to Mob, and he's just like, I know you're exhausted, but I need you to get up and I need you to get to safety on your own. And I thought it was so interesting they kept shifting back to like, from Mob's perspective, Dimple is, you know, God Dimple still, but on the other side, he's just like or was it the other way around?
It was the other way around. He was like
other way around. Yeah. So he's seeing Dimple as like how he remembers him, as like this just a little green flame with the cheek dimple things. And then like in reality, he's like slowly being broken apart because he's just giving literally all he's still got to fend off Broccoli and keep Mob safe. And it's interesting that he uses the last of the power to just jettison the Broccoli into space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Space Broccoli.
How'd you guys feel about that arc overall, though? It's pretty much like 4 or 5 episodes. It's like, no, it's like 6 episodes altogether, really. It was half the arc.
Honestly, I was kind of
half the
by it
season
until the very end. Like I was just like not that interested in it for whatever reason.
Same.
I was intrigued by the concept. I was like, oh, let's make a cult all about broccoli. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it was a few episodes too long. They could have ended it quicker.
For me, it felt like they took a joke at the end of the second season where it's like, oh, Mob needed somewhere to put all of this excess energy. He just shoved it all in a broccoli and he made it giant. Haha, funny. And then the next season, they're like, what if we stretched that out to like 4 or 5 episodes of actually important stuff?
Yeah, like we could have gotten a better understanding of why Mob is so apathetic. Because I'm sensing the pattern of like, well, Mob was just kind of like, this season. But I think that was the point, because you saw Mob as the villain, because you will see that he's battling himself at the end.
Yeah, he's this whole time not being a whole person.
Yep.
Yeah, that was so interesting to me when he was like talking to the shadow version of himself in his mind, and he's just like, who are you? Like, I'm Mob. Who are you? Like, oh, you're the fake me. Like, because there's a good argument to be made that like, yes, from the moment that Mob decided to like shut off his emotions, that's not a true him. So is Mob really the real Shigeo? I forget his full name.
Is Mob.
Yeah, is Mob.
And then you know, aliens. 2 episodes of Aliens, which
Yeah, it's
That
funny
was like
because
that one was
yeah.
just fun.
I
Yeah,
talked
let's
to
not
Ty
racist.
about I talked to Ty about that. And he was like, "Oh yeah, it was so." He remembers everything.
Mhm.
I watched something once and I completely forget about it unless I talk about it again. And Ty was like, "Oh, that alien arc, so funny, so psychedelic, so this, so that," and I'm just like, that that was like an acid trip for me. I don't ever remember that
It does
happening.
kind of feel like that.
you woke up and you're
Yeah.
just like,
After they get picked
where
up,
am
they're just
I?
like,
Yeah.
here's a bunch of stuff that just happened. One of
Yeah.
them got left behind and just stayed around for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
Do we ever revisit that?
So
There's
the
like
whole
one line.
yeah, at the very end, at the epilogue, it's like, hey, do you think those aliens will ever come back? And he's like, I think so. And you look at him and he's got
Still got the
alien eyes,
eyes.
and you're just like, oh. Because when you watch it, and it's a very nice, like, intimate episode of just having the telepathy club together. And you're kind of seeing a little bit, you're learning more about them. You even learn finally about the guy that Mob replaces, and that he's kind of like semi cool. He's like, I played tennis, oh, and
I love that he's a telepath that can shut off his powers by just putting in earplugs.
yeah,
Yeah, that was
he's
so
not,
funny.
and yeah, he just can read people's minds, and he's like, yeah, but I don't want to use it because it gets too crazy and I get headaches and whatnot.
That whole scene where the two like brothers are trying to just put out the psychic noise, and he's like trying to pretend that it's not bothering him, and he's eventually just
Yeah.
like, knock it off.
He's like
Oh,
messing with I think he's messing with this racket or something, right? And he's just like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
and the first episode's just kind of them like waiting, trying to figure it out, and Reagan's interesting watching him drive for the first time, which is hilarious. But afterwards you get the actual abduction where they're like, hey, are we missing somebody? And you have the whole like, I've been trapped here for this many like months or weeks or days or something, and I fought the big bad here because he was up to my ankle and I kicked him, and that was it. But like you see him, and he's like,
now these aliens love me.
yeah, he's just like, I just want to wake up and I play my Switch, and I'm sleeping with the alien princess. Like everyone loves me and all this stuff, but he's just kind of like, I don't know what's happening, man. He just wakes up, you see him just covered in lipstick, and you're just like, oh my god. I think also, I forget what the author's name is, but just his design of an alien. He's like, well, what do you think an alien would look like? And he's just like, oh, let me take a jab at it. And they got like chicken legs and just weird everything. Like they just look so strange compared to your average alien, where either it's like, oh, here's a creepy creature like a xenomorph,
Yeah.
versus
Now that I think about it, it's almost like they took the design for like a gray alien with like the spindly arms and legs and like the big eyes, but they were like, what if I made that cute though?
and pink.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
pink as hell. God.
Mhm.
That was hilarious. But yeah, it felt weird there because it's like that little, it was more or less filler because it's in between the two big arcs, and it definitely, I liked it. I'm glad it was there, just because it didn't, it did feel like it was something that would have fit better in seasons 1 or 2,
Mhm.
considering like the finale and everything else. But I guess you wouldn't expect that being the last thing you get before Mob goes crazy. You're like, oh, hey, what happens after this weird alien episode? Oh, Mob becomes a villain. Oh,
He
okay,
like
sure.
almost destroys the whole town.
He just destroys the freaking city, man. But going into then, the final arc, which I think it's that weird thing of like, if anyone's watched the final season of Samurai Jack when they brought that back on Adult Swim, the first 3 episodes are like 10 out of 10s. It's like a perfect trilogy. And the rest of the season's just so completely whatever that you're just like, this was what we came back for after all these years, really. And it didn't hold up as well at all. And this season reminds me of that, where it's like a reverse of everything's kind of whatever. It's not as bad. Samurai Jack was not as good as Mob Psycho's final season whatsoever. But Mob Psycho, the broccoli was too long. It felt a little bit out of place, and the aliens was there also out of place. And then finally you get these last 4 episodes where it feels incredibly intense. You really understand everything that's going on. You think this is probably one of the best moments in the series, but that's it. It's like it's a third of the season, so you're just kind of like, yeah, a third of the season's incredibly good, but otherwise, like, yeah. But how do we feel about that final arc, that epilogue, and Mob kind of coming to terms with himself, more or less?
I mean, I kind of touched on it a little bit already, so my final thoughts on it will probably be a little bit shorter. It's just like I really, really enjoyed it just to see everyone come back and try to help Mob any way they could, and just like seeing Mob finally become like a full person and be able to accept that I have these insane powers and I'm allowed to be a human and have emotions and stuff, and just like even like immediately after he like gets rejected by Subomi and he just is crying his eyes out like a normal kid would at that point, not like Mob, who was just like regular Mob would have just shrugged it off and been, like you said, been apathetic and be like, okay, on to the next thing. And then like I absolutely loved the last shot of the series where Mob is just like sitting with his friends and full on laughing and being happy. Like I loved that. So seeing like, and I really gravitate towards like story arcs that revolve around like personal character growth and not just like who's stronger, because it's a lot harder to just like come to terms with your own shortcomings and work on them than it is to just punch something real hard. So I really enjoyed this last arc like a lot.
Yeah.
I was go ahead, Momo.
Oh no, I'll say 100% agree with you, James. Of like, and the reality of the situation too. Of like, okay, the end of the day question is a slice of life type of scenario of how do you make a living or how do you go through life into adulthood with these type of powers and facing the reality, really processing it, because again, his final arc, he fully processes it and he doesn't compartmentalize, because I feel like these 3 seasons has just been like his emotions and his powers. He just kind of like keeps everything separate, where now the final arc, he's finally able to mesh it, process it, and really just move forward in life with it. And I just appreciate the whole idea of just what the reality of going through life day to day and what that really realistically looks like. So to your point, James, yeah, you can like Dragon Ball Z it and like just like punch people all day and every day, but in the day, who's actually paying the bills? It's like again, Dragon Ball Z reference, it's Bulma and her inventions, and that's how you get the realistically, that's how you pay the bills. So for this kind of thing, like how does he day to day as a human being keep going through life and just kind of just working his way through him being a human end of the day. So I really do appreciate just that overall character development.
I was satisfied with it because he's completely human now, and I mean, we don't get to see the journey of him learning to cope with it, just coping with the fact that he has this power, and seeing him try to balance that out as he grows up. We don't get to see that, but now that you see the final resolution that he has come to terms with it is good. And you get to see him overcome also like how I'm trying to think of what kind of like the main theme of season 1 was, because Reagan kept trying to tell him, hey, don't just use your powers just because you have them. Use them for self-defense, or don't use it just purely to fight. So you get to see Mob kind of work through that. And in season 2, gosh, what was the theme of season 2?
Pretty much the big bad's there, just like trying to defend the city from them.
That's right. Yeah, but I was very satisfied with that because you get to see that he's completely human now.
Yeah, I think one thing I really appreciated was the way they utilize. I'll get a little bit into this because we're going to talk about the intro and outro too. But the intro, like each intro has had like a specific name. The first one being 100, I believe, or
99.
99, and then the next one being 99.1 or 99.9, I think. And it's kind of the growing, and it's supposed to be Mob's like countdown to 100. And for 3, it's not, it's 1.
I've had that
And
song stuck in my head for literally weeks.
yeah, each one I'm like that when they first show these intros, I'm like, do I like this one as much as the previous? And the next thing I know, I'm in the gym just like going off at it, just like, yeah, I can do this.
I may have driven home a little bit too fast listening to that.
Oh yeah, no, those songs are dangerous on the road because you start increasing your speed. It's like, what's the speed? Oh no. But for it, it's like one and only one, and it's talking about one. It's not talking about his power level or anything else. It's talking about him inside becoming one with himself, and finally just like being not two people. And even see it throughout the different, like, because it's a very strange, I mean, obviously each intro is strange, but this one, it's like, oh, here's like a weird like cutout of eyes over Mob's actual like face, and everything looks weird. It looks like he's having a headache, and everything just looks really strange. And it's all supposed to, I would say, represent that internal struggle he then has of controlling his emotions, to then finally his emotions are out and losing control because they've been bottled away for way too long. And the unhealthiness, I guess it kind of hits that mental health of like keeping things bottled up for too long. Eventually it's going to get out, but because you've kept it in for so long, it's going to go off like a freaking volcano instead of having it have been there the whole time. So you're a lot more balanced with yourself.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that this arc really does that, where Mob's kind of having to watch as everyone around him that loves him are putting their lives on the line to attempt to stop him or get to him. Whereas like then he starts finally having that internal dialogue with himself, and you're kind of seeing how it unfolds, and it takes finally like Reagan to let the I guess merge finally occur. And it's an incredibly good payoff, and it does like, you appreciate that that's pretty much like the full ending of just like, here's Mob, the boy who can now feel.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
he gets tears, then he gets laughter, and I think the author even said like the show is going to end with Mob the manga, but the entire thing will end with Mob laughing at the end, and it pays off. It happens, and you're like, oh, that's why it's such a very, you don't think about it when he sits back then, you're like, all right, whatever. And then when you finally see it, you're like, this is an incredibly big deal. And I never thought like seeing someone laugh ever in anything would be that much of a like satisfying point of just growth. So I really appreciated this final arc, and I think that it did make me want to see more, but I also understood why it had to end at the same time, because then no one wants to watch something where everything's already solved, even though you're like, yeah, but I want to watch people be happy.
Yeah, I don't want to see it go on and just see Mob fight more and more espers. Like I'm glad it just ended with he had a good character growth. Done with it.
Yeah, you don't need no Boruto stuff or anything like that. So the intro and outro, how did you guys feel about it this time around? Because
so are we talking about like the visual aspects of it, or
everything, music and visual? Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I like how they kept up, at least with the outro, they kept up with the same art style. They just sketched it all out, and I mean, it's not like full outlines, but it was black and white. But the thing that I think, I didn't go back and watch the 2 or 1's outros. But I liked how the third ended in color. It was all like watercolor effects at the end there. I liked that. The song, I feel like even for all 3 seasons, I feel like the outro songs were, I don't know, didn't stick with me as much as other anime outros have. But the intro, I actually looked up the translation for that, because I like how for all 3 seasons they've had the Mob choir.
Yes.
I like how they've consistently kept that up. So I was like, okay, well, they had their own choir, and each one of them has been about Mob specifically. So I'm gonna look up the translation for that. A lot of it, I like how it all connected with just like it was just about him and about his inner war with himself. And they did keep up with, at least in the visual aspects, they kept up with how crazy and kaleidoscopy it all was, and just really odd. It was hard. Like I was at war with myself trying to just comprehend it all.
Yeah.
All the bright colors and the just the weird animation. I liked it.
Yeah, I don't really have too many comments on the outro because I don't remember it sticking with me too much, but the intro really stuck with me. Like, there's so many quick cuts that it's really easy to just like watch it in front of every episode, or even just like on YouTube, just rewatch the intro just to see like what did I miss and stuff like that. Because there's so many things you can like
You pause so many
notice.
times, yeah.
And like there's definitely one shot that really like stuck with me the most, and it was like when Reagan and I don't know if anyone else was like playing instruments, like Reagan is like on guitar or something like that, and he hits like the distortion button on like the foot pedal or whatever, and which is all, it already sounds cool, and like there's sound, music distortion is a thing, but also it just seemed to signify like mental distortion of just like there's so much chaos going on within Mob, and then like the next image is literally like a lightning bolt hitting the ground and causing like a massive almost nuclear explosion, and it's just like it's so interesting and cool of a shot, and like just the music itself is so cool because that's where it hits like a really huge drop, and it just I really liked that this intro showed, I think like you mentioned, just the chaos and the battle going on within Mob of like controlling his emotions and like his powers. I mean, again, I can't remember who said it, but like Reagan or someone, when they witnessed Mob just like stomping through the streets, just destroying everything around them, they comment like, "Oh my God, Mob, you've been holding this in this whole time. Like, no wonder you're so muted all the time because you spend all your energy on just keeping this inside." And so I thought that intro did a really good job of like giving you hints at that throughout the season, I guess, of like this is what's going on inside. It also doesn't help that like this song uses one of those techniques where they just take random words, English words that I can recognize, but they don't mean anything. They just sound cool and they like go together. So just like I think that's why it's been so catchy and stuck in my head, because it's just like I don't know all the words, but I know some of them and they sound cool.
Definitely. I personally, so the outros I never cared about. I'll just say it right now. I already I watched some of them again earlier this week. I already forgot them. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of whatever. They never really were that special to me at all. But the intros are like the ultimate workout playlist that you just throw in there, and you just feel power. You're just like, you're feeling that surge. You're just like, oh, what is this power? It feels good. I'm gonna go lift something. And for one, like I wasn't really sure if I liked it the first time, which was the same way with 99.9.
Oh, that's my favorite.
I know. And and then I like hear it a second time and I'm like, yeah, all right. And then I hear it a third time and I'm just like, yeah, all right. And just like really feeling it. And yeah, James said it pretty much on point of like how you get the inner fighting of Mob throughout the whole thing. But the music itself, like the energy in it is so insane. And to have it just being called, Mob Choir, it's just like some group of musicians and you have some vocalists who I'm just like, if I could just have a live performance of them, but I don't want it like a concert. I'm like, if you guys could perform at like a gym or something, that would be like the best thing in the world. I would love that, because I'm pretty sure it was either one. I think it was honestly one. I was finally able to like go over 300 pounds on squats to one, because I was just like full energy. I was like, okay, I could do this. And I ended up doing like 5 reps and I was like, holy shit. And I put it down and I fell down. I'm like, I'm dead. All right, it's over. But it really does like give you liquid, not, I want to say like liquid courage, like you would from alcohol or something like that. But like it gives you just like this
adrenaline,
inner adrenaline that you didn't know you had. You don't need anything else. It's just like, did you put anything in your body? No, I just literally listened to some music and it just gave me power.
I just went 100%.
Yeah. So I love these intros so much. They're one of the top, like they're one of the best intros I've ever seen in an anime. Just I guess put in perspective, One Piece has like 25, 24 intros. And I think
Oh
there's
my
like really
god.
like 4 that I really enjoy for like at least like music. Whereas like this one, yeah, it's like 3 for 3. Perfect. Like you didn't need to change anything for it. And the last thing, just because it relates to it, but guys, I just love the Body Improvement Club, and I'm gonna miss them.
I
Yeah.
know they were
Best club.
like,
Best
oh, best club ever. And it's funny because I watched like maybe one or two like sort of opinionated pieces about Mob Psycho, and they were like, oh, the Body Improvement Club. They were kind of like douchebags at the beginning. I'm just like, they were never douchebags. Wait, what?
They didn't even
were
do it.
never.
Yeah, they're just like, hey,
They even let the paranormal club still use the room. They're just like,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever. We
Yeah,
don't need, like, we just
exactly.
needed to store our equipment.
And they
Sure,
were
use the
always so
table.
supportive of Bob because Bob was like, I just won't stay in shape, y'all. And every time he fell down, they were like, no, kid, get back up. Come on.
Yeah,
You're
they're nothing
almost
but
there. You're almost
supportive.
there. Yeah. So Body
Yeah.
Improvement Club, 10 out of 10 club.
And even like when Mob is going crazy at the end, and like they hear that he might be still out there, and they don't even know that it's him causing the trouble, and they're just like, we got to go find Mob, like he might be in trouble. And they see that it's him doing it, and they're like, we don't know what's going on, but we got to try something. And he just like immediately destroys them, and they're just like, oh my god, was he actually this powerful the whole time? I thought they knew. Apparently they did not.
yeah.
He's like, yeah, he's like, he's strong this whole time. Why
Yeah,
did he hide it?
Yeah, I appreciate the Body Improvement Club because seeing another Body Improvement Club, another anime I watched and was from Ice Blade Sorcerer, Shall Rule the World. That's like the series, and the main character who's like OP, joins their own Body Improvement Club. I know it was for the sketch itself where they're like, in order to join, you have to be this buff, and like, yeah, it was like a funny thing of him like, yeah, I have all these secret muscles, and that was their trope. But I really appreciate for this one for Mob, as you said, Alessandra, like they accept him for who he is. They're just really supportive. There's no judgment, and then it's just all about, again, just improving oneself and just being as supportive as you can, just again compared to just other Body Improvement Clubs from other animes where it's just like judging you of like you have to be this specific bar, you have to meet this bar to even participate. Where for this one, it's more like, hey, we're all here together, we're all improving together. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Each season you see them like risk a lot for Mob. Like the first one, when they're like, wait, there's a gang that's gonna beat up Mob, and they just show up, they're like, hey, what are you doing to our kid? And they're like, oh, you guys here to fight us? And they're like, no, we just want him and we're gonna leave. And then they all try to fight them, and they're just like, well, I guess we'll have to do self-defense. And they beat the shit out of like a gang of like 60 people. And at the end, Hanazawa like throws them all everywhere, and then they just kind of get up after and go, that was weird. All right, Mom, ready to go work out? Just go and start running again. Season 2, you have them like go in during the final battle. They show up in an insane Esper fight. They're just like, oh, hey, Mob, what's going on? And that massive dude is like trying to fight Mob, and the captain like stops Mob from getting crushed before Dimple even takes him over. He's just like, yo, I've seen you grow, I've seen you do all this stuff, and I'm not gonna let anything happen to you. And he's just a normal person. And then when Dimple gets him, he's just like, holy crap, I've never been in someone so powerful before. And it's like, why? Because he works out. It's just like, oh shit. Like, it's so good. And then the final portion, I forget what his name is, but he becomes the new captain in the epilogue, is the one that talks this time. And it's awesome to see Mob's own progression, that he's now vice captain of the Body Improvement Club.
Yeah.
And they have now all these like young recruits with them, which is incredibly, I think that was the best ending.
Dude, even from the first moment when like Mob is trying to decide which like club to go for, and it's like it makes sense, like obviously he chooses the psychic club, right? Because he's literally psychic. He's like, no, I'm gonna choose the Body Improvement Club. I want to work out on my body. I want to impress girls.
I would like to say it's so good as the ending there, but Dragon Con, I think a great, easy, cheap group cosplay could be Body Improvement Club. I'm just saying, guys, we could totally
That's not
do it.
terrible.
Yeah, I
That's
think it'll be
funny.
a good time. But now Spy Family Part 2. This show, this freaking show. Like, yeah,
Dude, I
Borf
love
me pretty hard.
I
Borf.
love that
Borf.
Bond is just like they have like a real human just saying Borf.
Just Borf.
I've said it before, because I guess starting with the intro and outro for this one, the first intro and outro, when I first heard it, I had just gone to New York to visit, and I was like walking the streets, looping the intro like nonstop. And when nighttime hit, I just started playing comedy, because first song was Peanuts, second one was comedy, and it was just so phenomenal how good they were, and I couldn't believe it. And I know someone else used comedy for something really big. It was, I don't know, it was maybe an end of a wedding, everyone's leaving, and I'm just like, the fuck is that comedy playing?
Yes, it is. Yes, it was.
I loved it.
That was a good
I
plan.
think so. It was so funny because I was a bridesmaid in Momo's wedding, and when when that song started playing as she was walking down the aisle, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I need to stand still. Whoopsie.
Best song. Definitely approve. It's bridal wedding approved, because it's especially the instrumental. Well, it kind of is already kind of instrumental anyways, but yeah, I know, like for myself, again, purposely picking that for a wedding because I'm a weeb. So like for context, for my wedding, I had Housing Castle Carnival for the bridesmaids. For myself, I had an Inuyasha, like it's the Inuyasha Kagome theme, but I'm like, okay, end of the wedding has to be upbeat, fun, playful, and Spy Family. Just I had to. So I agree. I do like the dichotomy of, again, kind of like that Cowboy Bebop spy type of dynamic, but also the fun, playful side of it, which I think Spy Family is, and another anime show, Buddy Daddies, just it really works out with the dichotomy of serious people die versus fun, fluff, and just slice of life.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I don't know who else, but I felt like I was the only person when the Inuyasha Kagome theme played. I was like, it's that. I know what that is. I know what that is. Oh man, that was insane.
Appreciate
in America,
you.
like I know that reference.
The intro though, Souvenir is what it's called, and it is so fun. It's just like, oh my god, this is like, it feels great. You watch the intro, it's the warmest thing you could think of, because the first one, it's so action, you're like, I love it, but this one's just warm. It's incredibly warm. It's showing the family together, and even have everything from like Anya and Becky holding hands to like the transition from like, oh, Lloyd pulling out a gun to them being at like the fair and stuff like that. But I thought it was magical. It was so freaking good.
I'll let you finish.
No, go for it. That's
so what's funny to me is like I remember liking the intro a lot, but the outro was so it literally, I think it's the song's name is Colors or something. Like it is literally possibly my favorite anime outro I've ever seen.
Really?
I thought the song was so good, and just like the imagery, unless I'm mistaking the intro.
When they're in the house, it shows like all of them in different points. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So because I loved that when they're all in their individual rooms, they all are literally basically in different lives.
Yeah.
Like it seems to be like in some like ventilation shaft waiting for like her target to show up. Like Lloyd is sitting on like a ruined room because it's like I think a callback to his tragic past or something. And Anya is in her school, and then like they all see this light off to the side, and they all follow the light, and it's them leaving their rooms and coming together and being happy together, and just seeing how they pan the camera around the apartment, and it's changing to different scenes, and like you get to see the side love interest, maybe, although Lloyd has no knowledge that she's even interested in him.
We'll get
like,
to her for sure.
You get to see like her first, and like you get to see a little bit of how like when Lloyd's talking to her, yours in the background, and maybe she's not that like interested in that this new lady is around, and it's just so cute seeing Anya like seemingly try to cook something and just utterly failing before she even starts, and she's got the crying googly eyes.
Yeah.
And then like Lloyd is just like, oh, you, and they cook a family meal together, and they look so happy, and it's just like seeing Anya trying to like chow down in the background until Lloyd notices her, and she's like, ah.
Yeah, that was great.
And it's just like I loved seeing all of that. And then like at the very end, when they all go back to their different rooms, they reverse the thing where they're all going on to their separate lives again, to like really show that like they really enjoy living together, and they are a family, but they have very separate secret lives from each other.
Yeah,
And then
that
like
only Anya knows
Bond
about.
being just cute.
Yeah, Bond being Bond.
And like even Bond, I think before the family shows up, he seems to be like surrounded by a bunch of like broken down kennels and stuff. So like even he has like his own previous life and stuff.
Yeah.
Borf.
Love Bond, best boy.
Best boy. Best boy. The goodest boy.
Absolutely.
Oh,
The
yeah.
bow tie sells it.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. I ordered a figure soon, yeah, with Bond. And I know, Kamran, you mentioned this, or you'll touch upon this, but I do appreciate, again, like the little side snippets of like Bond, and I forgot his name, but like Lloyd's like informist, you know, like he tries
Oh,
to pick up
Frankie?
girls. Frankie, yeah, he tries to pick up girls with Bond,
Mr.
and like
Scruffy beard.
Yes, yeah, it was just, and I do appreciate just again those little snippets. I think it's just really fun and really just adds to the story as a whole. And again, it adds to world building. It adds to just the fun, playful side to the overall arching thing of, you know, West versus East and assassination with Yor and everything. So yeah, I do love just the little pockets of, you know, just little like filler episodes or like filler like, you know, 1/3 of an episode. I do appreciate that. I think it really adds to the story arc as a whole, personally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And this was so this show was going on at the same time as Mob Psycho. And my order would be watch Mob first, then watch Spy Family, because I love Mob. It's a fantastic show, but I'm just like, I just can't wait after. I'm just watching more Spy Family. Like I'm like enjoy Mom, like that was really good. And then I watch Spy Family, I'm just like, oh boy, yeah, like I'm fully smiling, happy the entire time.
Yeah.
And because I said it before, like this show came out of left field for me when the first season came out. Like Momo and Chris Schneider, who's been on before, were like, "Oh, you're gonna like it. It's like a spy and an assassin." I'm like, "What the fuck are you guys talking about?" And I watched it. I'm like, "This is the best thing I've ever seen." And like, it was my number one anime that last year. Like, it was phenomenal. And you get like I guess the beginning here, the first serious thing in this show, because everything feels like a one little shot. Even an episode could have 2 to 3 things going on, because it's kind of like 2 to 3, I guess, manga chapters is how it goes. And in like an episode, and they're just kind of each one's separate, and you always get excited for the next thing because you're like, oh, good, there's like 3 in this one or something. But you get the first serious arc with the bomb/bond arc, where you know the terrorist organization's just like, we're gonna blow shit up and everything else, and kind of screw up the potential diplomacy that's going on between the East and West. And having everyone with a specific role of Anya kind of like, oh, I can read this dog's mind, and Lloyd might be dead by the end of this. And she's just like, I'm not losing my dad. So she goes through like this whole adventure to try to save him, whereas Lloyd's doing his mission and Yor's just trying to find Anya the whole time. She's just like, I fucked up. I
She
fucked
goes
up real
full
bad.
blown. Yeah, she goes full blown mom mode, and
Dude.
she's like kicks a car out of the way. She's like, "Where's
my
my
God, that
daughter?"
was
That was so like the moment where she realizes that Anya's missing when they're going through the market, and she's just like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And she just like
Jumps.
Spider Woman jumps to the ceiling and just like scans the whole room. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Sorry.
It's insane. Or when the dog, so like the other dog is like cornering in on Anya and Bond, and you know, Yor shows up and the dog growls at her. Yor just turns around and bears fangs, and you're just like, where did you even get those? You're just like, oh my God. But oh God, the dog's just like, I no longer wish to be hostile towards you guys. I'm gonna back off now.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
I may have bitten off more than I could chew.
Quite literally, yeah. I did love though that you have, what was it, 3 episodes? Or was it 2 or 3? I think it was 3 episodes, right? That you kind of went through for a bit.
Did
It was
take
2
that
or,
long?
it was 2 or 3.
Because it has to do with the bomb and the clock and everything, in addition
Yeah.
to.
Because the
think
first
so.
one, it's just she meets Bond, and then like the second one, she goes to stop it. Yeah. But I think because Yor saves her at the end of the second episode. So I think, yeah, it's 3 episodes. Which is funny because, you know, it ends up with them just kind of all meeting back up in one place, and they're like, oh, hey, where were
Yeah.
you? And it's just like, oh, hey, let's go home, I guess. And then like they take, what's her? I forget what her name is. The handler. Is there just handler or? But
Oh,
she talks about her past. Like she had a daughter who passed away.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to
Um,
remember her name. It's at the tip of my tongue. I'm probably going to show up with it near the end of the episode.
but I guess quite the opposite of Mob, though. Like, you know, whereas Mob were kind of a little critical of the arcs they kind of choose to do so in this, whereas Spy Family's always been kind of one shots nonstop. How do we feel about this arc being an actual arc, the first arc we've ever gotten so far in this show?
Biasly, I like it just because I think it's hard because I know some people watch slice of life or like shows that are don't really have a story progression and they prefer that, and I know where other viewers prefer some story progression. I'm a bit probably towards the story progression, so I do appreciate where there is more progression, and again we see more characters, we see, I know in the future we're probably going to see, you know, Lloyd's background and everything, so biasly I do appreciate it. But I know this was a big deal because we're revealing one of the last remaining main characters to the family, which was Bond the dog. So I can understand why this was a bit different formula compared to the other episodes.
Okay.
I liked it. It's funny because whenever people ask me what's your favorite style of anime, I normally default to slice of life, but then I think, but I really like My Hero Academia. I really like Spy Family. I really like Mob. I really like Rascal does or does not like Bunny Senpai or something like that.
I'm
So
not
it's
gonna
one of
ask
those
about that
things.
one.
It's
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 okay.
weird. It's weird. I don't recommend it for you.
Okay.
It's weird. Yeah. Maybe Momo knows about it. I don't know. But
I got you, girl. I got you.
yay. But then I'm like, well, is that considered slice of life? Because that actually has some story gravitas to it. So it's I liked the arc where you got to understand more of the political discourse between the East and the West a lot more, because I'm like, okay, so you get you have the arc in the first part, in part one, where Lloyd is all just trying to build the family together. He's trying to accomplish that first part of the mission. And then the other half of part one is, you know, seeing Anya trying to battle with trying to do well in school and trying to do right by her dad and all that other stuff. So you have some gravitas with that, but now we're getting the full picture. So I appreciated that a lot. And the
Yep.
one-offs and stuff, like I remember more of the political discourse between the East and the West stuff than the one-off episodes. I remember enjoying them, but I don't remember them as much.
Yeah, really quickly, Alessandra, you actually make a good point, which reminds me of this show reminds me of the formula for Fullmetal Alchemist, like the original, not Brotherhood, where you can maybe skip an episode and don't be too crazy of like, did I miss anything important? Where of course it was the kind of like this is where it was the multiple episodes for one specific arc where it's like, okay, you do need to pay attention. So that kind of reminds me of similar to the OG Fullmetal Alchemist, which technically wasn't canon compared to say Brotherhood, where
Yeah.
you know, you need to watch every single episode because it pertains to the story as a whole. So that kind of reminds me of that dichotomy.
Like that woman that dresses up as like a thief at night and would just blow stuff up, and she was like a nun during the day or something like that. I have a
I
very
don't
vague
remember that.
dude. Old Full Metal is like it's a weird depression show. I'll tell you, it's a weird
Amen.
depression
I
show.
remember watching the entire original Full Metal series and just like reading the manga. Like I was reading the manga currently along with
show?
the anime, and
And
then I
you're
was just
like,
like, and I was like,
what
oh
the
well,
fuck?
that's weird
What?
how that show ended. I'll keep reading the manga, and then I finished reading the manga when it like actually ended, and I was like, damn, that show fucked up. The manga's way better. Thankfully, they just redid the whole thing.
Alessandra, if you ever watched, I don't know, have you watched the Full Metal?
I haven't yet.
Okay, if you watch, like there's a reason why there's two separate, completely different shows, because the first one they were doing it while the manga was being done, so they made up their own stuff, like complete different plots and
I've
characters.
heard about
It's like Sailor
that.
Moon, right? Like you get one
Yeah.
series, so yeah, it's like that where one is true to the manga and then one isn't. So
Yeah.
And like
Mhm.
instead of
insane.
doing what Naruto did, where they were like, okay, we'll just make like a bunch
Filler.
of filler episodes that
Yeah.
don't matter until the
Mhm.
manga.
Didn't they
can,
do the
like, have
same
some
thing
time.
with Bleach?
I never watched
Or
Bleach.
is that
I couldn't
just-
tell.
Good question. I don't know. Good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not too sure.
But I know Bleach has like 1,000,001 episodes, and like 100 or 150 of them are filler or something like that.
Yeah.
I just know the first Full Metal will diagnose you with depression by the end of it, and then Brotherhood will like
Yeah.
make you happy, and you're like, oh, good, you should watch them back to back because one
So
will
just
lift
palette
you.
cleanse with Spy Family. I see what you're saying.
Yes, more or less. But yeah, I thought the arc was good. I thought the Bomb arc was really fun and getting to know Bond really fast. Of just like, you morphed here and you
Mhm.
morphed there.
And you get to see that Anya is actually kind of smart.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it
Yes,
was really
yeah.
cool that like
Mhm.
because she can read thoughts and Bond is a dog and he kind of like thinks in images and he can see the future. She can basically like when she's near him, she can see the future. I thought
Yeah.
that was really interesting.
They really seem to have a bond.
Hmm.
Ho, 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 ho.
But yeah,
Sorry.
Well
but yeah,
done.
like so this whole series has like an overarching story going on. Like there's a reason why the whole Spy Family is even a thing. Like it's Lloyd's mission. So it makes sense that like every once in a while they would do like maybe an extended arc that is covering a more important part to his like mission. As much fun as it is to have like the multiple like mini stories per episode, I think like Momo, I enjoy like like story progression arcs a lot more than just like individual fun stories. So yeah, I was totally on board for like having multi-episode arcs for the season.
It's a good
Alright.
balance.
We'll get to
Yeah.
It's a good balance.
the tennis arc. I absolutely loved that. That was
Yeah.
Oh
ridiculous.
gosh, that
So-
was so
it was something. The one shots though, I will say this. So every episode I'm kind of waiting for like the overall story to potentially progress, and then you get like the crazy one shots, but I then immediately forget, and I have no like remorse or like, damn, I can't believe they didn't. I'm just completely like, oh well, I'm gonna have a good time anyway. Like I literally no regrets here. But this season is completely filled to the brim with one shots, and each episode potentially having 2 to 3 different stories going on in it at different points. Were there any that stood out to you guys?
I
have a few.
loved the like take your kid to work or investigate your
Oh.
parents like
that's right.
That is so
like,
fun.
just for the scene where she goes to Yor first and she's like, oh, what do I do? What do I tell? How do I show her my work? And she like Anya sees this whole like a montage in her head of just like do I tell her
She's
like
dressed
how
as
best
Yor?
to kill people? And she's got her own like
Yeah.
tiny Yor outfit. And she's just like stabbing the crap out of it too and saying like,
Anya's
yeah, if you
covered
stab
in
someone
blood?
here in their brain, like it kills them really fast. And it's like, oh no, what do I do? Like we're all covered in blood. I guess we'll tell Lloyd that we went to a tomato like shop
Festival.
or something.
It was the tomato festival.
And she's just like, I'm gonna ask Dad. It's like that's probably for the best.
Yeah. I just love that Anya's covered in the blood, looking just like,
Yeah.
It's so cute.
I will say the one thing I was so happy was the transcribing of the manga of Anya's faces to the anime was seamless. Let
Really?
me tell you. Yes,
Okay.
it was. I was so like curious of like having to do these faces, the hysterical. They are 100% spot on. So yes, love it.
I also
Excellent.
liked the mini story where Anya was like, she learned about secret codes
Oh,
and she's like,
Oh,
I'm gonna make
yeah.
a bunch of secret letters and see who can like figure it out. She gives one to like
Oh my
Becky or whatever, and then like basically no one figures it out except for Mr. Scruffy, and he's just like, oh, it's a date. Someone's asking me on a date.
poor guy.
He gets all like he
So
spends like
excited.
all
So depressing.
excuse me, he spends like
and
all
Anya
night.
Anya
He's-
just completely forgets about it.
And she forgets about it too. And like he spends all night trying to figure it out. And he's got like bloodshot eyes. He's so disheveled. He's got like flowers in his hands. And he's just like, I'm so excited. I can't wait. I wonder who it is.
God,
Real
so
funny.
depression. Yeah. For me, it was definitely, there were 3 standouts. One was oh, Yor has to go take Anya her PE uniform. And she
Yes.
sneaks to
Oh.
school, and Lloyd's like, what are you doing? And you just see when she's climbing the fucking window, and the kids are talking like, yeah, don't you know, like there's like a haunted thing of like a
Oh, yeah.
monster. And he just looks over and he just sees her in the window like, "Ah," and he's like, "Ah!" It's just, like so freaking good how Yor can somehow, because you see her and she's like this clumsy woman who's supposed to be really good looking but also an insane assassin. But all these situations, it's just like, yo, this woman's freaking scary. Like, it's insane what situations she gets into where someone will see her, and it's like kind of that feeling of this is the last thing you will ever see, and kind of saying that she's a good mom though at the same time that she went through all that trouble just to give the PE uniform when Anya didn't need it. And Lloyd's just like, oh, good job. Let's go to lunch. I just got off work or something. The others,
She even got like a coworker to try to like teach her how to cook better because she's like
yeah,
somehow
that episode
impossibly
was
bad at cooking.
fantastic. Yeah. Oh my God. All the cuts on her hand and stuff. You're just like, what's going on? And dude, that was so funny because you find out Yuri was raised on that stuff. So he
Yeah,
is
and
like
that's like
built
why he's
an
like basically
immunity to it.
unkillable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Yuri's just like, so good.
Yeah, he's
and
just like
he's
so happy.
vomiting back out.
It's like
Nissan,
it's so normal to him that he's like, yeah, like of course you vomit when you eat good food, right? It's like, no, Yuri, no.
No, Yuri, no honey.
You're very unhealthy in multiple ways. And you don't realize it. There's too many ways.
He just loves his sister so much that he's just like happy that she made him food.
God, I think the best part about that though was at the end, she actually pulls it off, and you actually see a little bit of development where it's like, oh my God, you did it, and then it's like, oh, I made my own dessert, and Anya and Lloyd are dead on the ground. They're like dead, and you're like, oh no, that was so good.
But I do appreciate the backstory character of like that stew is what she was taught, like because of her own mother's stew and like
Yeah.
their family. So I do appreciate those. Again, it's funny, love the surface level stuff, but then it just adds just a little more deeper backstory on the characters themselves, which I do appreciate.
Did they do like a Ratatouille type moment where like it took them back to the childhood or something like that? Like I forget if they did that.
I know there's always gonna be, I think it's a flashback. I feel like
Before she cooked it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
before
what it
she
was. That's
cooked
what I'm
it,
thinking
yeah. Of like her being a kid, yeah.
Yeah.
Those were probably some of the best ones. It's always funny because the Your ones are usually the most far in between out of all of the three, but when they do happen, it's the most hilarious just sheerly because of probably how ridiculous it's going to be, because it's not going to be about her assassinating someone, and incredibly like the complete opposite of just like, oh no, this is actually what she's the worst at instead of what she's the best at. But yeah, the tennis arc was something I was not expecting, and I also wasn't really sure what to expect from the character that came with it. And I only knew about it a little bit because Chris, our friend Chris Schneider, he was on the episode where we did the first part of Spy Family. But his favorite character apparently is Nightfall, aka Fiona Frost. But that tennis arc, God, that was 2 episodes of just sheer insanity.
I also love she called herself Nightfall to add to the theme of like
Yes.
Twilight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, and there was also that one shot episode of, I can't remember if it was part 1 or part 2, but Lloyd goes in to try and change Anya's test scores, right?
That was this one.
Yes.
Oh, the fakes, the
Yeah.
shitty spy.
Yeah, the fake spy.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there was a fake spy called Daybreak, and you get an actual.
That was so
and
funny.
you get an actual spy named Nightfall.
Dude was an idiot.
He's like, I'll make a name for
Daybreak,
myself. I'm gonna be
Nightfall.
Daybreak.
Yeah.
Lloyd's
it's
just like, I have to act like I'm unconscious and all this
Oh, God.
stuff.
His like, Lloyd is trying to be like so nice, just like giving it to him basically.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyways, but the tennis, just bonkers. And when I first met Nightfall or Fiona Frost, I was like, okay, cool, another cool spy. And then I just thought the sheer seriousness of her character. And then she's like, but I'm in love,
Yeah,
head
just
over heels,
the-
in love with Lloyd. Oh my gosh. Just the comedic factor of that. I was
Yeah.
just like, whoa, that went 0 to 100 really quickly.
Just like the combination of like her face being totally like blank and just like, I am 100% serious about this. And then internally she's like, oh my God, Nightfall is the best. I love him so much. He's so cool.
And then Anya just gets that purview of just like,
And she
you know,
Yeah, she's
hates
like,
her.
Yeah.
we
She's
got
like, if I were this child's mother, I would make her have straight A's. I was just like, I don't like her.
it's
Make
like
her
you
go
can't-
away.
I think the two biggest things from it was one, when she the internal of just like she goes wuv, like she gets to the wuv
She
point.
straight up is like Marin from
Dress Up Darling.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I love him so much.
yes.
And she also I started laughing so hard because I was like, thank God I'm wearing headphones. But she starts like doing internal moans and everything, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, okay, we're going crazy here. And then Anya does one of the funniest things where, Anya's a very colorful person. She has so many different faces, so many different just everything. She does a full-on animalistic snake hit. She's like like it's when, oh my God, that was so funny. That was fantastic. I was not expecting that. That was so freaking good.
And I think what made it better too is at the end of the episode, they did like the tennis off between her and Yor, and then
I
Yor just
laughed
like
so
destroyed
hard.
the tennis ball. And Yor's like, this always happens. And I love how like it was like, kind of brushed over, right? Like it was noticed, but still kind of like, all right, keep going. Yeah.
It's like,
so
oh,
I
that was
just-
weird. She just like Swiss cheese that ball. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so funny because Fiona is just like, she kind of gets that Hanazawa humbling, but not, she doesn't really learn from it too much. She just goes, I gotta try harder.
Just
Like she's just like, oh,
the
she's
over the top nature of that whole thing where it's like, it's not even like they didn't even do it back and forth. It was literally just like her trying to send back one shot. And like Yor is just like, oh no, I used all my strength and I just destroyed the ball. I guess I'll have to like not go 100%, but still try to like, because she's like, she doesn't want to just like pity Nightfall.
Well,
No.
but she's trying to prove herself as a wife too, right? Because she thinks
Yeah.
that she's getting replaced. So
Yeah.
she's like, I have to be a good wife. Yeah.
And so she gives like her, I guess like 98% assassin strength and just like sends a meteor at like at
Yup.
Nightfall and just
Yeah,
is
but
like
it really puts Nightfall in her place because
she's
even
like-
after she was like, I love you so much, I'm gonna try to be your
Yeah.
wife. And
she's literally just like
no, dude, lay off.
And, like,
Yours got that.
yeah, and like to her, like she doesn't know that Yor is an assassin. So she's just like, oh, this random woman, like she literally is, she doesn't deserve Twilight and she's not right for him. I am, and I'll prove it to him. And then yeah, she just gives all her strength to just like block the tennis ball, and it's just like just sitting there for like 2 minutes, just like I need to give it all my strength, and then it just breaks the racket, and she's like utterly 100% defeated.
so
But
good.
she still is like, I'll prove myself. I'll be better. I'll come
now
back
it's just
stronger."
her strengthening her resolve more than anything.
Yeah.
But the two other things, I think, one is, I think it's hilarious that everyone has the same idea of just like, I want to be the new wife. Oh God, I hope she doesn't become the new wife. Oh, I really, Anya's just like, you can't become the new wife. And Lloyd's just like, yeah, don't do this. Just don't do this. Also, don't play tennis with Yor. Trust me, you don't want to. Like, he already has, he after like the freaking castle episode where she's just drunk and like, are you sure you're a
I
witch?
love
You're
that
just
whenever
trying to kick
Yor
me.
gets drunk, she just like loses control, just
Completely.
decimates Lloyd.
But the first half, the first episode, when they're like actually in the tournament, reminded me of the interview day episode where, they are prepared for anything and something will happen. They have like 4 different sets of clothing they keep changing into. They're like, oh, we brought another outfit. And it's like, elegance. But like they in this one, there's so many different traps they keep trying to do to cheat them.
That was, I
and
think
they
that's why I liked
overcome
it so much.
every single time. It's the same similarity there.
It's like, oh, we can.
But the struggle's still real though, which I appreciate. Like, they're
Yes.
still
Yeah.
like have to adapt. Like, they still have to, like curve.
I do love that they just showed off like how incredibly skilled both Twilight and Nightfall are. That like they can overcome like the I think it was like the net was moving, the floor had like
Pressure
movable
points, yeah.
The
points that
sniper
they
shots.
yeah, and the sniper shots, and it's just like, and they beat everything. And like the other people even had like rocket like swings and crap like that. And like I think the sister had like the telescoping thing that she could just like reach from wherever, and just like, and they still lost like utterly.
They those two were at least humbled by it. They were just like, holy shit, you guys are
Yes.
really good.
And
like,
at the very end, it's just like, you're actually good tennis players. You don't need to cheat. You could just practice being better and you would actually probably win. And they're like, oh my God, no one's ever believed in us like that before. Like, you know what? You're right. We're going to like practice from the future, and we're not going to cheat because this guy believes in us.
yeah. And, characters themselves, because we get like 3 new characters, which we've more or less talked about 2 of them, but like, we talked about Bond, Fiona Frost, aka Nightfall. There was one more character that's just in one episode, but that one episode I thought was so hilarious, especially with just what the things that occur in it. George Gluman, who
Yeah, I saw that name show up and I was like, who?
So he was the
Yeah.
kid when we talked about that episode. Alessandra brought up like that shitty spy Daybreak. Like he's trying to change the results for what, like he was hired by George Gluman, who's like, oh my God, like my dad, or something's happening to my dad's company because of
that kid.
Desmond's company. And he tries to get Damien expelled, and it turned like it backfires and everything else, but he's like, guys, I'm not gonna be able to go to school anymore. This is my last day. And it's like, kind of what would you want your last day to be like? And everyone's treating him so nicely, buying him like lunches and stuff.
He's
and
milking it for everything he can.
everything. And the funniest thing about this is Anya's there the whole time, but she's just in the background, and the entire time she's just wide-eyed, just kind of like, and the 2 funniest parts were, one, everyone's like, here's a gift. Anya's like, I found a leaf.
Yeah, it's like, here, whatever.
Here's a leaf.
Here you go.
And then also, I love to just get into song, and they all start singing together, and you're just kind of like, is this the same show? I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now? And even Anya is straight up just kind of like, what the fuck's going on? It was just so, I think that's what showed how good this show can be, just how insane it can get, of just like, what's happening.
Well, especially just at the very end when it's just like, oh no, your dad's company isn't going out of business. My dad bought your dad's business. You're fine. It's like,
yeah.
Oh,
I guess go back tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess I didn't need to like extort you guys out of
all this kumbaya.
Yeah. Oh
yeah, I would say that part, I think if I had to label anything as like filler, or just felt like, okay, cool, but definitely could skip out or something, I would say is moments like that. But luckily that's few and far between okay, of feeling, okay, this is filler. It's just, they're just making screen time to try to get to the end of the episode, which again didn't mind. And luckily, at least personally, as being a viewer myself, of okay, that's one of the only kind of ones that really stuck out, at least to me, of okay, it seems like a filler thing, but I don't mind it. So
other than the tennis arc, one of my favorite moments in the show was just when Lloyd finally got to meet his target, and they're just talking. Because it's such an interesting.
You're just on the edge of your seat the entire time.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, are they gonna read one another? Are they gonna know what's gonna happen?
And the whole time Damien is just trying to like clearly just be like the perfect kid for his dad, because he so desperately wants his dad's affection.
Yeah.
His dad looks so fucking weird. His eyes just like open all the time.
That's funny. Which
yeah. The last thing before the finale, it was actually the episode before, Lloyd and Yor at a bar or something like that, and he's like, oh my God, I think she likes me, maybe I should try something. And she smacks the shit out of him.
Yeah,
but he does like
every
a full
time.
on...
It's so funny. She knocked him out. He woke up on a bench after
she's like singing a
What
lullaby
happened?
to him, just like. But no, the absolute best part of that entire thing was when she hits him and he does like the full backflip and lands. All the
like,
men there like, oh hey, everyone's like clapping for him, just like, oh, you did great, dude. And then he goes out.
He takes like one step. He's like, oh wait, hold on.
but it was insane. I think also, was it the lullaby you heard when he was a kid, or no? Was that just
He was definitely like envisioning his mom, and he was just
Yeah.
like, huh?
yeah, but that was the closest. Like, it's like, oh, we got another like 12 episodes. Oh, did you finally get the like any progress on those two? No, you didn't. You didn't get any progress. You're just waiting, like, damn, still not again. Because I assume this anime is going to be long, and there's plenty to do here. But that final episode, we finally get to meet what's his, I know his last name is Desmond, but I forget what his first name is. But like Lord Desmond, whatever, he's the
Yeah.
target that you want. Like, the whole point of this show is he needs to learn about this guy, and you get the first physical look at him in person, and his voice and the way he talks to his son, or at least his younger son. And I found it very interesting. And it's just like, this dude, especially that he looks so weird. He is such a weird design. He looks so strange. But then, like, the minute his eyes squint, you're like,
Yeah,
this
when he
guy's a threat.
squints, you're just like, oh shit.
He's very
He's just got
threatening.
serious.
Yeah. So it definitely makes me think a lot of just like, okay, this is going to be a big overall thing. It's going to take a very strong amount of time to even get through this. But I'm excited to see where it goes. But did you guys have anything on that before we get into the final things?
No,
I
don't
thought
think
it's
so.
interesting. I do appreciate, yeah, just kind of again having some kind of overall like story arc progression, because I know without doing too many spoilers for the manga, you do get a deep background into Lloyd and why he became a spy in the future, and then you also get a look into Desmond's mom. So it's just really interesting of like,
Oh,
again, like that
interesting.
kind of progression of you see the father, you get some kind of payoff, right? Like it's not just something that's just purely episodic where there's no story progression. So I do appreciate that. I'm excited to see the next season of just, yeah, the story as a whole just continuing further.
I'm
okay.
definitely probably most interested in seeing more of Lloyd's backstory, because we've gotten like brief glimpses at something tragic happened to him when he was a child, and it
Yeah.
forever changed him. And like the closest we got to that was like when like he and the handler were interrogating someone at some point, and they were like, oh, this is war, like you can't break me. He's like, this isn't war, you don't even know what war is. Have you experienced any of this horrible like list of things that I've definitely experienced myself, like just without saying it explicitly? Like, so clearly something horrible happened to Lloyd, and that's why he like has dedicated himself to being the greatest spy in the world, so he can avoid war and like maintain peace at any costs.
A world where children don't cry. Yeah.
Literally, yeah. And it's for Lloyd's backstory, without spoiling it, it's interesting because it's a roller coaster. It's not just like one thing, it's multiple things. So it's just that just keeps stacking on top of each other. So it's just interesting just to, eventually see that in an animation form.
Cool.
Okay. Otherwise, so okay, this is what confuses me a little bit. I can't remember what they said. So this was interesting. They're like part 1 and part 2, and then they revealed for this year we're getting a couple different things. We're getting, I don't know if they're calling it season 2 or part 3 for the show. It's one of those two. I don't know if you guys know or not, but I honestly couldn't figure it out. We're getting that sometime this year. So I'm assuming another set of either, I guess, 12 to, I doubt it'll be all 25 episodes, but we'll get, a dozen or so. Maybe they'll go crazy with it again. But we're also getting a movie this year too, both in the same year. And it sounds like, I don't know if it's going to be filler or something, or if it's not from the manga. Mo, if you can, I don't know if you know if it's from the manga, but they did say it's going to be like a cruise, like a vacation cruise or something.
Manga. That's from the manga. Yeah,
Yes.
the cruise
All
arc.
right.
The
All
cruise
right.
arc. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the cruise is going to
Which
be
follows which is really nice, actually. Like the cruise arc, yes, Lloyd
Ooh.
and Anya are part of it. Obviously, like different missions coincide within each other. We're getting a cruise, but I was just thinking this, like, we need to have more your stuff. And this cruise arc follows but also has, Lloyd and Anya, which I think is nice because we've been seeing Lloyd's line of work a lot. And I think it's
You
nice
haven't
to
seen
shine
yours at
some light
all.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I was
So,
gonna
yeah, the
say
cruise arc.
earlier that I was hoping to see more of your.
You do, and it's really nice too, where for it's, without spoiling it too much, she's a bodyguard, which is really cool because you just usually just see her as an assassin. So I really like this new perspective for the Cruz arc where she's a bodyguard, and I think that's really cool.
Oh my, this is gonna be exciting. But yeah, I'm
It's
not
good.
sure. They haven't given us any dates, or they just kind of gave like a picture. So they haven't given us any trailer or anything. I'm assuming June at the earliest, but it's probably gonna. I think the movie will come first, I guess, but that'll be like probably summer, and then the rest of the show will come in the fall. The show's been so fast in terms of like bringing, like part 1 and part 2's gap was like 3 months. So
Yeah, that was crazy.
this is the show where I'm like not. Meanwhile, like Demon Slayer, I'm like, give me the next thing, or Attack on Titan. I'm like, you guys are actually, Attack on Titan's the worst. It's the actual worst. But
Yeah.
like Spy Family, I'm like, you guys could even take a little bit more time if you want, because like you gave me a lot. I'm very grateful. Like you guys, you guys are doing fantastic. You guys are fine. The rest of you, stop fucking up. But like
Mappa, stop doing so many things. Just finish one
for
thing.
those that don't know, Mappa is doing Attack on Titan, Jujutsu Kaisen, and Chainsaw Man. So you're just kind of like, what are we getting? Whatever.
You need to calm down.
Yeah. Now it makes sense why Jujutsu Kaisen's coming in a few months. I'm like, how are they going to do that? And Attack on Titan. Oh, here's a 1 hour special. Oh, that was okay. That makes more sense now.
Yeah.
So okay, last thing here. Spy Family took the world by storm with like the first 12 episodes or so. And or at least it took me by storm. It honestly seemed like the whole internet was like losing their mind over, at least the anime portion of the internet like lost their mind with this show.
I know I started seeing clips on Instagram, and that's when I was like, I need to see what this is all about, because like I'm seeing weird shit that out of context makes no sense. I need it to make sense.
And now like, you know, part 2 is coming gone, but I guess does part 2 feel like it reinforces the first? Like, is it staying on par? Is it staying just as amazing? Do you guys feel it's losing any luster at all? Because this is, at least for me, it feels like a much different show than most other shows I've ever seen, with so many different one-shots and stuff like this, compared to other shows that have much more of a full like story arc they're going through. This one like just goes like, well, let's have a fun time, and you're like smiling through the whole thing. But how do you guys feel about all that?
Honestly, I enjoyed every second of both parts, so I don't think it's losing quality at all. I just like, I am 100% along for the ride.
Me too.
I think it's bittersweet because, well, one, 100% love the show, love the manga, all about this. Even like now I'm excited to see or continue to watch other anime series that are like this called Buddy Daddies, where it's like assassination, like 2 assassins with like a kid.
Oh, yeah,
That being said, though, do you have to mention the elephant in the room that we probably all know about, is that the creator, Tetsuya Endo, doesn't care for the series.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah. And it is bittersweet where like
Weird.
he 100% was being quoted where just, you know, big quote, I gave up on what I originally wanted to draw, because essentially his editor was like, hey, this stuff that you are creating, it's not selling, it's not working. Can you please make something more cute? Like, to the point where Endo did not care at all, where Anya and Lloyd's characters are completely he ripped off his other work. Like Anya's like actual character, like development,
it's like a witch
like
girl
her
or something, right?
yeah, like originally it's a witch girl, pink hair, had the little cones, like everything is completely ripped off of his original previous works. And it's kind of like the same thing how the creator for like Jujutsu Kaisen, where he's like, I hate Gojo, like F Gojo. Kind of similar situation. I don't think it's less hate. I think it's just Endo's just like, I don't care for the series. It's not what I originally wanted. I was pressured to make something that's more audience appropriate or things of that nature. So it is bittersweet of just, again, I think to your point, Kamran, it does take viewers by storm. I love it. I love the dichotomy of fun, cutesy stuff, but also have a serious overlining arc. I love that. I think it gravitates a lot of different audiences come together to watch this. That being said, I know it's not what the original creator wanted to end the day, and he's just doing it just to pander to his editor / the masses. So it's kind of like bittersweet type of thing.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
What was the, I mean, I guess it is something I want to read later, because I don't really read manga, but there's like select ones that I know I can't watch that I'm like thinking about. But what's the manga called for this work prior that I guess like Anya takes design from?
I can look it up. Yeah, if you ever see the duel thing, oh, here we go. Of course it's in Japanese. Rengoku no Ashi.
Goku no Ash. So she's the
Yeah.
Flame Hashira. Excellent. That's all I need to
Yeah,
know.
so essentially, literally her school uniform, seeing picture right now, her school uniform, her with pink hair, she's basically a witch character. It's her but chibi style, which is Anya. And then Lloyd, even like the spy, like he's a spy manga, and he just kind of transferred that to Lloyd's character. So again, it's bittersweet where we love it, audiences rave about it, but end of the day, it's just one of those things that just was pandered for audiences. But it happens, right? That's just capitalism, it's just, it is what it is. And hopefully too, with this momentum, the hope then is that the creator Endo gets the funding and the backing to create something next, what he really wants to create, hopefully.
That honestly, I'd
So,
love that. Yeah, but I also
that's
I don't want this to
optimistic
be
hope.
rushed. But yeah, like once it's done, he could totally do that. And I think honestly, he'll have enough fans that he should be able to pull it off, and he'd make sales, even if it's not maybe as big as Spy Family sales, whether it's for manga or just anime adaptation. I think it would still be enough because I'm betting anything that his earlier works, when they did come out and they didn't do well, I bet they had all spikes after Spy Family, where they're like, what other stuff did he do? It might not have been as big, but I'm sure he's like, oh cool, these all started getting stuff too.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that's the hope. Optimistic
Yeah.
hope.
I imagine though he's like Ryan Gosling in Blade Runner 2049, where he's looking up at the giant hologram of his former girlfriend, and he's just like kind of just depressed and like fucked up looking. He's got like, the bandage and everything. But if you guys have seen like downtown Tokyo, there was like a giant, it was like their version of Times Square. There was like a giant screen, and Anya like pops on it. He's like, waka waka, and like does all this stuff on the screen. So I imagine he's just there looking up, just like, just so just done. But that's crazy. But okay, that was Spy Family Part 2, and that has been our episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. And of course, you can follow the show at Sutro Sidetalk, all one word, on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And please subscribe on whatever platform you are listening or watching on. And if it's Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star review. If it is Spotify, please rate us. And if it's YouTube, don't forget to hit the like, please. It'll really help us out. And share it out to everyone if you can. Allessandra, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram and on Twitter, but I'll be honest with you, my Twitter is pretty empty these days. But if you like kitty cat content, if you like the occasional funny story about a child, blurting something out during my music class, or you just like Ghibli, because I like Ghibli, you can follow me on Instagram at aharms11.
Yeah, you got a lot of jumbles there. It's pretty great. It's a jumble.
Oh yeah, the jumble. It's
so cute.
jumbleness.
It's Jumble's world. It's Jumble's world.
Yeah,
and we're
just living
in
we're just living in Jumble's world. I agree. Momo, you started a little something. If you want to talk about that.
Yes, sir. So my personal Instagram account is _ the Momo. But I'm launching recently as you see the background, a lot of anime, video game, abstract art, as well as creating a anime inspired jewelry line. So you can definitely find me on TikTok, Insta, Twitter, all that, maybe at Mystic Hour Studio. So again, a lot of anime weeb stuff. So definitely check it out then.
Awesome. And I'll have all the names and everything for all the app profiles and everything else on the show notes on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. So just check the notes for those and you'll find it there. And you can follow James on Twitter at InvaderJim124, and you could follow me on Twitter at GoGoComzilla, which, like I said, just retweet a lot of Godzilla shit. So just be prepared for that, and lizards. Otherwise, next week, I'm actually, if we can, I don't know if we can, we might talk Ant-Man 3 and Creed 2. So basically just both, it's double King. You have King fighting Creed and you have King fighting Ant-Man. It's the same guy, but it's going to be hilarious. Otherwise, could have still episodes. We got 2 coming out soon enough, Black Adam and Shazam, Fury of the Gods. And then I think in April, just because I'm going to be gone for a week or 2, might be some places. I might see some people too. You will get a 2-part Destiny 2 Lightfall episodes, which might be a little bit over 1.5 hours. I know this one was a little bit too, but we got a lot more people than usual. we'll have some fun there, and I think we'll have some interesting guests, hopefully for that one, those two as well. We'll see how it goes, but that'll be in April. Until then, guys, catch you all later. So long.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.